freshwater fish you really probably shouldn't be eating.
I knew big predatory fish.
Yes, that's in the ocean, but that's heavy metals from the ocean, which is also from us. But that's mercury. But there's toxic levels of heavy metals and pollutants and forever chemicals that are in freshwater fish. Because all that shit that's in the ground gets into lakes. All that shit that, all the runoff, all that stuff gets into streams, gets into creeks, gets into rivers. We watched a video when we had Will Harris from White Oak Pastures on the podcast, and he showed the difference between his regenerative farm that doesn't use any pesticides or herbicides and his neighbor's farm. And there's literally a dividing line in the river where you can see the runoff from his neighbor's farm turns the entire river brown. And it's legal. It's legal to pollute.
Of course.
Because it's industrial farming.
Exactly.
But it's crazy. It's just like all that industrial fertilizer, herbicides, and pesticides are running off because the topsoil is dead. So all that stuff is running off as soon as it rains, and it runs right into the river, and you can see a dividing line. There's like clear water on one side, and this disgusting brown, dirty water on the right side.
Have you seen where it runs from the river into the ocean and creates dead zones?
Oh yeah. No oxygen. Yeah. Yeah.
Not even jellyfish.
Well, I have a friend of mine who's a yoga instructor, and he's from Argentina. And he came to America, and no one told him. He was in LA. No one told him don't surf after it rains. So he was surfing, and he didn't understand that all the runoff from all the streets goes into the ocean. He got horribly sick, and he's bedridden. And he was like, "What the fuck is going on with the ocean?"
Having grown up in California and spending a lot of time in the water, I have known this for years, and now I can't even imagine, by the way, in California who dare to get in the ocean at this point.
Yeah.
Considering all of the crap from the fire. That's a great irony.
Oh, yeah.
That's my favorite. Oh, we're not doing any forestry mitigation because of the environment, and yet these fires have rolled back all of those protections for like 20 years.
Yeah.
Is it just...
Well, that ground's ruined forever.
Destroyed. And pours into the ocean.
Twice the size of Manhattan. Ruined ground. All those people that had electric cars, those batteries, all that shit is all of the plastics and the fiberglass and carbon fiber, all that stuff, the tires, all that stuff is now in the soil. And good luck having a garden. Good luck. You want to try to grow plants? Good luck.
I was talking to, I don't know if you've ever seen this gentleman. He's really great. He wrote a book called Eat to Beat Disease, named Dr. William Lee, and he called me after the fire because I was out there visiting my mom. He's like, "Where are you? Are you in California?" And I was like, "I am at the moment. In fact, I'm right here by the Palisades." And he said, "Jill, do you remember 9/11 dust? That whole thing, all that?" Of course I remember. He sent me a bunch of articles. He's like, "Oh, get out of there. Get your mom out of there." He said he gets in your kids' clothes when they're on their way to school. People, we're going to be talking about this 10 years from now, the results of the toxins in this fire and how they've affected people's health.
No doubt. No doubt.
Crazy. And it happens twice a year.
Yeah.
At least.
Oh, I was evacuated 3 times when I lived in LA.
In fact, I lost 2 homes. One that I owned in 2018 and one that I sold in 21 just actually owned.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And nothing, I mean, what they did during the fire was just so insane. The fact that the reservoir was empty, oh, we need to make a lid for it, we didn't get around to it.
For over a year, and it hadn't even begun.
No.
There were so many things wrong there that I could literally...
What's lack of funding, Jillian? We don't have enough money.
Oh, I can't! Have you seen Mike Schellenberger talk about this?
Yes.
That will make your blood boil.
Yeah. Schellenberger's great.
I love him. He's like, "We knew about this for 7 days with the winds, and we could have borrowed firefighters from all different states and this and that, and have them pre-positioned." Oh my God! Knowing between Mike Schellenberger and Corolla, whipping me into a frenzy about this. I literally think I've like popped 10 blood vessels because so much of this could have been mitigated and wasn't. And in fact, Gavin Newsom, my favorite politician.
He's my favorite podcaster. I wish we would get back to him. He stopped. I don't know why he stopped.
Oh, did he? I didn't know that.
was so bad for him. He had this idea of reaching across the aisle. So he reached across the aisle and he gets guys like Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon on, and they eat his lunch. And so, and people I think at his party were like, "What the fuck are you doing? You're making us look horrible." So he bails on his podcast. What was his last episode?
I didn't realize he bailed.
Oh, he's back.
No, we weren't gonna get that lucky. I don't think so.
Oh, Rahm Emanuel. Okay, well now he's with his own side.
Yeah.
Scott Galloway, pretty much his own side.
Yeah.
Anthony Scaramucci, he hates Trump. That's a good move.
Yep.
Ezra Klein. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not that it's gone away. It's just that it's so horrible nobody's watching it, and nobody's even talking about it anymore.
Yeah, that might be
This is
it.
Gavin Newsom.
God.
But it was so funny because
brutal.
that was the response after the election. They said, well, podcast influenced the election, so we'll start our own podcast. Your podcast is going to make people even more inclined to not vote for you.
My favorite was we had our own version of Joe Rogan, and I love when I remember when you loved Bernie. You were like, I like the guy. You had Joe Rogan. Joe was on your side, and that's the one thing with the left is they purge people from
because it's a cult. It really is. Like leftism, not being an actual progressive. Like an actual progressive is a person who's kind, who wants people to just exist and be yourself and live amongst us, and we should all have social safety net and laws that like are kind and compassionate. We should look at the fact that we are an incredible first world nation, and we should like roll out the red carpet to all the people that live here and try to make it a better place for everybody. That's real progressivism. And then it morphed into this like let perverts get into the women's room, let men compete in women's sports, and ignore the fact that some people are fucking psychotic, and give them a blank check as long as they just say they're a woman. Like, oh, you're a woman, go ahead, carte blanche, get in. And not only that, but treat them better than you treat women themselves because they're actually more oppressed than women. So there's oppression hierarchy.
Right.
So they get the gold medal in the oppression Olympics. It's like, it's bananas.
It is bananas. It really is. I can't. That's the stuff where you look and you say, I would never for any of it.
Yeah.
If I'm libertarian and for personal freedoms, of course. If you want to change your gender as an adult, that's absolutely up to you, and I would fight for the right to do that and live with dignity. But when your personal choices impact the rights and the freedoms of others, this is a far more nuanced conversation.
Far more.
And it's like, whoa!
Especially when you're dealing with kids. And
that's a whole different.
This is where it gets really crazy.
No, that's evil.
There's this hilarious conversation between this woman who's like, she looks like she's probably in her 70s, and this person's asking her if you had a granddaughter, would you support them taking puberty blockers? She's like, absolutely, absolutely. I think it's insane to try to force a girl to go through puberty if she's really a boy and this that. Would you allow them to get a tattoo? Oh, I think that's permanent. No irony. Seconds later, no recognition of what she's saying. No, like tattoos can be removed, lady.
I know.
Yeah, they can laser those off.
Have you noticed though? They really don't understand it.
No.
And I got in a conversation with Jessica Tarlum about this, and she's like, "Oh, but the kids go through extensive therapy." I'm like, "That's not true, Jessica." Or the concept that it's reversible. People believe that exactly.
Not only is it not true, but puberty blockers are the exact same thing they give to sex criminals. When you have a sexual molester that is forced to be on sterilization drugs, that's exactly what they give to young boys.
It sterilizes kids.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Takes away sexual functions. If you interrupt puberty and you stage 10 or 2. And the reason I bring this up is because they'll tell you it's reversible. And here's the thing. I actually went through this exercise with somebody, and I was like, show that to me. And they went on ChatGPT, and yes, this is reversible. And the argument is that should you have a child that starts puberty at 7, and you use puberty blockers, it's very rare, it can happen, and they do it strategically to slow that down for a child and help them develop at a normal pace, it doesn't sterilize them or make them incapable of having an orgasm. So the distinction that's key is when you block puberty at the stage of 10 or 2, which is arguably the appropriate age that puberty is parting line of, if you make them go through this, they'll kill themselves. And it turns out that the data doesn't bear out to prove that either. But they
not only that, it goes the other way. The data goes the other way. They're 25% more likely to commit suicide, suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety. All those things ramp up once they've transitioned, because they realize like they've made a horrible mistake and they've been influenced by these crazy people. They want to use them as like virtue flags. They want to use children as virtue flags. It's fucking insane. They also shouldn't be allowed to call them a different thing than when they call them. They call them chemical castration drugs for sex offenders, yet they call them puberty blockers.
And gender affirming care.
Gender affirming
Isn't
care.
that lovely?
Yeah, it's fucking barbaric and bananas. And we're gonna look back at it the same way we looked at lobotomies. You know, we performed lobotomies for I think roughly around 50 or 60 years before. I think they stopped it in 1967. I think that's when they stopped the last lobotomies. And then they realized, like, oh my god, this is a terrible thing to do. But they did it for so fucking long. And this is the same thing that's going to happen with this whole gender affirming care thing for minors. It's crazy. Kids don't know what's going on. You have children, you know what it's like.
Oh yeah.
They go through phases and cycles. They become tomboys, and boys play with dolls. Like, who cares? A lot, by the way, a lot of those boys that want to transition, it turns out they're just gay. And if you just leave them and let them be gay, and a lot of my gay friends fucking hate it, because they're like, you're trying to erase gay people. You're trying to say that all these gay people are really in the wrong
Welcome.
gender.
Gosh, I've never thought of it from that angle.
How are you?
I
Hello?
have seen the financial component though.
Oh, that's big.
Can you hear me? Hello? Hope you're having a good day. We're just watching Joe Rogan.
Multi-billion-dollar business.
That's where it's evil.
And when you look at who's funding this stuff, I remember, my God, I used to go to the friggin' Human Rights Campaign dinners and donate, you know, when you're fighting for gay marriage, the good liberal. And now, when you go to their page, if they've got a score, and forgive me, I can't remember the friggin' name of it, but there's a score where they rate different medical institutions on how they provide gender-affirming care. And if they get a bad score, it impacts, I think, how much grant money they can get. There's a page for this, I believe it's through the HRC on their website, and when you look at who funds it, Pfizer. Like, oh, that's not at all surprising. And one drug, I think, is almost $1 billion a year business. Off-label. I forgive me, it's been a minute since I've looked into this, but I'm in the zone for sure. Yeah, terrifying stuff.
Well, it's just, the money thing is so scary, because when money gets attached to anything, all ethics and morals go out the window, and they just try to make as much money from these things as is humanly possible. And they've always done that.
Yeah.
They've always done that across the board with virtually everything, and we're surprised when it happens with children.
I don't know. You and I are surprised, but I think most people are not awake at all about it.
No, most people aren't awake at all, and if it doesn't affect them personally, they feel like it's important to espouse these beliefs, because these beliefs show that you're a good progressive.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, it's like people's minds have been co-opted by, you know, I don't necessarily believe in demons and angels. I don't believe that. But if you were the devil, like, wouldn't money be your most valuable tool to get people to do absolutely atrocious, evil things that are going to ruin their lives? Money is like the devil's playground. It's like where the devil can convince good people to do things, and then you use words like gender-affirming care, and you can kind of like change the narrative, but the end result is really just you're profiting off of people's confusion. And you're doing so in a way where you're sacrificing. It's literal child sacrifice. Those children that wind up committing suicide because they went through this gender-affirming care and are horribly depressed. They don't have breasts anymore, and they're so confused, and they can't have children, and they just wind up killing themselves, and this is sacrifice. This is like a form of child sacrifice for financial gain. I mean, you're not sacrificing them to the gods or the demons. You're doing it to money. And it's really wild that we can't see that. We can't like look at all the data and see and understand like the complex interaction of human beings and people that are around them that influence them. And that they get encouragement, and then they get positive feedback, and then they show up at school wearing lipstick, and everyone's like, "You're amazing. You're amazing now, Bobby. Now that you're Roberta, like now you're amazing. You used to be some guy that got stuffed into a locker, and now your girl is incredible, and you're giving them this positive feedback, and it's money. People are profiting off of it. It's fucking insane, and it's so wild to watch it all play out and realize like we are so vulnerable to influence. Human beings are so. I mean, this is why cults exist. This is why people are willing to be religious martyrs and blow themselves up. And which, by the way, like, why do they do that? Why do they get kids to wear suicide vests? Because you can't convince a 55-year-old guy to do it. 55 guy with a job and a family and a lot of interests and good friends. Tough to get him to wear that suicide vest. He's like, what? What am I doing? I'm going to the mall? What the fuck? No, why am I doing that? I'm going to heaven, and I'm going to get 72 virgins. Can you show me these virgins? Like, if they're fucking, what happened to them? How do these poor virgins wind up in heaven getting raped by this 55-year-old guy who blew himself up? Like, this is fucking insane. Well, you can't get adults to believe that. You can get children to believe that. So we don't want to like take that same ability to influence and then just transfer it over to children.
I'm not quite sure why the human mind is so fragile. I've asked myself that so many times. And this is gonna sound totally off piste here, but you brought up demons and what have you, and I just watched that. I didn't read the book, so forgive me, but I watched the documentary on the book Chaos on Netflix.
Oh yeah, I read the book.
And, okay, are you not completely? I cannot wrap my head around how Manson got seemingly normal people to commit this kind of murder. And when you listen to these women talk about it, they're like, and then I stabbed her 15 times and I felt the knife go into her hip bone. And she looked at me and said, I'm dead. And then, like, no emotion. What did you do to this woman's mind? And you can't say she's an outlier,
right,
because he was able to convince the group of people. I cannot understand this kind of
that's
fragility. What is that?
That's MK Ultra.
Is it not? Is it that? Do you think it's that?
No, 100%. That's Jolly West. Jolly West was the CIA operative who visited Manson in jail. He's also the guy that visited Jack Ruby after he shot Kennedy, and then Jack Ruby starts saying, I'm seeing demons, and the Jews are on fire, and Jack Ruby didn't have a history of mental illness like that, like complete psychotic breakdowns, but he did after Jolly West visited him in jail. Yeah, there's real documentation about those experiments. One of them is Operation Midnight Climax. So the CIA was operating brothels, and they were operating brothels where they would have two-way mirrors, and they would be behind the mirrors, and these prostitutes who were working for the CIA would give the Johns LSD, and then they would observe them. This is all
I knew a little bit about MK Ultra, obviously, in that they were using psychedelics to influence people and try to gain mind control. Okay, so here's my question. This is what I find so fascinating. Do you think that the LSD simply accelerated that mental vulnerability or the ability to warp someone's mind? Because when you tell people now you're going to perform a sex change on a child, they think that's a good idea. And I'll tie it back to one thing that also is seemingly unrelated, but everyone's outraged about RFK. He's not a doctor. Oh my God, he's trying to get to the root of autism, and he's misguided about it. Where was your outrage when Xavier Becerra, not a doctor, wanted to remove all age limits for sex changes on kids, whether surgery or not, the medicalization component that we talked about? Like, that to me is a group psychosis. I wonder, to get an adult to, where's your outrage and your concern about this? Because this is batshit crazy.
Right.
And nobody said a word. Nobody cared. It went completely under the radar. And I'm just wondering if the ability to capture someone's mind in the way that they did, the CIA studies, did LSD simply accelerate a vulnerability that's already pre-existing, and you're watching the brainwashing of people go on over the course of decades? Because if you said this to a person, arguably when in Obama's first term, when he ran on gay marriage, that you were going to run sex changes on children in the year 2024, people would have lost their friggin' mind.
Right.
So it's just a complete. It's just. They must have been brainwashed, though.
Yeah, it is brainwashing. And cults. We all know that cults are real, right?
Yes.
We all know about the Manson family. We all know about Jim Jones. We all know about cults. And we know that human beings are very vulnerable to group influence. Now, when you have someone that's actually being trained by people that are psychologists and understand influence, and then also trained in using the implementation of LSD on these people, one of the things that Manson would do is he would pretend to take LSD, and then he would give it to them and then influence them while they were under the influence and he was sober. And this was all learned through the Harvard LSD studies, which, by the way, created the Unabomber. Ted Kaczynski was a part of the Harvard LSD studies.
How do I not know this?
Yeah, well,
I know he was a genius.
Yeah,
well,
there was a bunch of things wrong with him. First of all, when he was a baby, he was severely ill, and they put him in some sort of an infirmary, and he didn't have any human touch for months. For months, they like when he cried, and he's in his crib, they left him there. His brother talked about it. There's a documentary on Netflix about him, and his brother talked about, like, even before the Harvard LSD studies, he was like really fucked up. Really fucked up, complete lack of empathy, like, and just
sociopath.
Yeah, complete sociopath as a young man, and it would express itself when he would experience rejection from women. He would have like violent reactions to that rejection and write them horrific letters and torture them and yell at them. And,
Jesus.
Yeah.
So scary.
And then he goes through the Harvard LSD studies, which a part of his particular studies was humiliation. So he would be under the influence, and they would humiliate him, and they would abuse him, and try to get him to a certain state of mind. So then this guy goes off to Berkeley, becomes a professor, and his whole idea is to just make enough money so that he can implement this program. Here's what's crazy about his ideas. He's kind of right. So he's kind of right, and he thinks that technology is going to replace human beings. Like, he sees this through all of his acid trips, that human beings are going to be replaced. We probably are.
Yeah.
We probably are going to be replaced by AI. We probably are going to be replaced by synthetic life that we create, and we're facilitating that with our reliance on technology. So he decides he's going to live off the grid in a cabin and kill all the people that are involved in technology. A very twisted, distorted reaction to this thing that we're recognizing as being real in 2025. That we are experiencing. We have AI on our phones now.
Right.
We're constantly being monitored. We're constantly being surveilled. Your rights are getting very murky because all your data is being given away. Everybody knows everything about you. It's easy to influence people with algorithms and also with bots. And it's being used for political discourse. It's being used for so many different things. Essentially, we don't want to think that cults can be half the country. But it for sure can be half the country. It can be the whole country. If you live under Sharia law, it's the whole country. The whole country believes that women have to cover every part of their body except their eyeballs.
Yes.
And this kind of thinking, we're very vulnerable to groupthink, and especially groupthink that's being like intentionally manipulated also, and then being done with psychedelic drugs. Now, they did it during the Manson era because they were trying to stop the anti-war movement. So they were trying to, like the hippies and all these people that were like, hey, make love, not war.
Right.
Like, we have to change the association that the general public has with these people because too many people are joining up with them. And so what they did was they got the Manson family and they got them to commit these horrific crimes. And every time Charles Manson would get arrested, he would get let out of jail. I mean, he was violating parole left and right, and the cops that arrested him were all being told when they were interviewed, they would say, this is above my pay grade. They're telling me that I have to let him go. So they would be contacted by someone from the State Department or wherever and saying, let him go.
I saw that somewhat alluded to in the documentary of like, well, when the one guy, I'm going to botch this, never mind. Bottom line is they generally alluded to that. But in Henry's book, there wasn't that kind of in-depth takeaway of
Yeah,
all.
unfortunately, the documentary is only like 90 minutes.
It's very short.
Yeah,
and it draws a connection, but it doesn't prove out its point. And I couldn't quite understand where's the proof of it until you just explained it.
Tom O'Neill, the guy who wrote that book, he's been on the podcast before. He was my friend Greg Fitzsimmons' neighbor in New York, and he was writing this 20 plus years. So Greg was his friend when it was happening, like when he started. So what he was doing is he was writing an article. I think it was for Vanity Fair or Variety, I forget. But the article was on the anniversary of the Manson killings. And so it was supposed to be just like, hey, this is the anniversary, just write an article about the facts. So he starts going into the facts of the case, and he's like, well, wait a minute. And so he starts investigating, and he can't investigate enough. And then he gets in trouble because, like, the deadline's passed, and then he gets a book deal, and the deadline passes on that. He's just completely obsessed with getting to the bottom of this, and absorbing more and more information and documenting it all. He's got enough for many books, and I believe he's writing another book right now.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah.
You know, the huge irony is that these drugs can, as we both know, these drugs can save lives.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to Callie and Brigham, and who are involved in the Texas Ibogaine Initiative. And what's so fascinating is
very different drug.
Okay,
yeah.
But what about psilocybin? Like when I talk to
also very different drug.
Is it?
Yeah.
Really?
Very, very different drug. Yeah, LSD is very different.
So they didn't
than all
use
of those.
psilocybin or ibogaine or any of that stuff.
No, not with that, but perhaps you could if you did it correctly, if you knew how to manipulate people. Like Jolly West was well versed in manipulation. I mean, this was the whole part of the CIA's program, and by the way, it's not just the CIA; it's other intelligence agencies. MI5 is doing it. The UK studies on psychedelics. You could see the videos of British troops on acid. They dosed up these British troops from I want to say it's the 1950s. Do you know that video, Jay? You know the video. We've played it before. But these guys are with full fatigues, just laughing, leaning up against trees, laughing. They gave them LSD.
To what end?
Well, they want to find out what it does. They thought it was a truth serum. Turns out it's not. Like, well, what can it do? And then so they used people to try to figure out what can be done with it. So this is 25 minutes. Let's put your headphones on real quick.
Okay.
The first effects of the drug became apparent. 25 minutes
of the drug became apparent. The men began to relax and to giggle. But this man was more seriously affected and had to be removed from the exercise. After 35 minutes, one of the radio operators had become incapable of using his left, and the efficiency of the rocket launch team was also very impaired. 10 minutes later, the attacking section had lost all sense of urgency, noticed the bunching and indecision as they enter a wood occupied by the enemy. Almost immediately, the section commander tried to use a map to find the location of troop headquarters, and a prisoner's escort had to have the way pointed out to him, although it was in plain sight, 700 yards away over open country. 50 minutes after taking the drug, radio communication had become difficult, if not impossible, but the men are still capable of sustained physical effort. This man nearly succeeded in felling this tree using only a spade. However, constructive action was still attempted by those retaining a sense of responsibility in spite of physical symptoms. But 1 hour and 10 minutes after taking the drug, with one man climbing a tree to feed the birds, the commander gave up, admitting that he could no longer control himself or his men.
Yeah, so this is one of the first experiments they did with LSD and soldiers.
Would you be trying to spray the air over the opposition? I mean, otherwise, what is
you can
what is that?
infect their food supply. You can infect their water supply.
So using it against your enemy.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there was also some experiments that they ran. I think it was in St. Louis, where they were using a fan and they were spraying things, aerosol spraying, to see what kind of effect things would have on people. Like our government, if you give them the license, right? I don't want to say our government. Let's just stop saying that. let's just say human beings with unchecked power.
Yeah.
Human beings with unchecked power
Yeah,
that they have an imperative. Like, what are they trying to do? Well, they're trying to figure out what this stuff does and what's the best way to do it. You tried it out on soldiers. Like, they've always done that with vaccines and a bunch of different experimental androgens. They've dosed them up with steroids and all sorts of different things to increase aggression. Methamphetamine was used during the war to get kamikazes to fly their planes into boats. The Nazis did it. Oh, yeah.
I've seen that footage of him. I think it was at the Olympics.
Yes, 1936 Olympics. Just fucking rocking. Just rocking.
I heard that they did not have
Yeah.
it. They propped him up on that to the degree that he was able to subsequently convince Mussolini to jump into the mix.
Yeah. Have you ever read Blitzed?
No.
It's, do we have it here still, Jimmy? Norman Ohler wrote this insane book on the ubiquitous use of drugs during the Third Reich and how it caused them to go through Poland in 3 days because they stayed up for 3 fucking days on meth. And they gave the most meth to the people that were driving the tanks because they were at the front. So it was like they gave different doses depending on what your job was. And they just methed up, ran through Poland, and they caught these people just like in France. Like, their soldiers were given wine, so these people were like drunk, and then the Nazis came through methed up and just fucking killed everybody.
You know, I've heard that, I don't know if this is true or not. So I heard that similar things were given, forgive me for throwing this out there, it could be total bullshit, but to Hamas on the October 7th attack in order to be able to commit those kinds of atrocities.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either. I've heard it through the friends who are Israeli. It could be bullshit, but I would wonder if you have to commit those kinds of violent acts against another human being. I would imagine you'd have to be altered in some capacity. I can't even fathom being able to. I don't know. I can't wrap my
Well, I
head
think
around
human beings are capable of great atrocities without any kind of
one
drugs.
on one like that though.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they do it. I mean, look at Vietnam. Look at the things that people did during Vietnam. I don't think they dosed them up in Vietnam.
No, I guess you're right.
And in Vietnam, people were taking heroin and smoking weed, and they were still doing that. It's people have an evil capacity to other people. Like, decide. You see it politically, in this country. Like, people on the left will demonize people on the right. People on the right will demonize people on the left. It's just like, it's a tribal thing that it's an echo of our past, because essentially when we were small tribes of 150 people and then you got invaded by a neighboring tribe, you had to be able to commit extreme violence against the other, and you had to be able to think of them as not you. That's not person. That's them, and you have to be able to go after them.
I can understand that
encouraged by
broadly.
the group. And
Okay, right, fair.
Yeah.
But
I get it.
So visceral, I think it is, and I don't mean to bring the vibe down, but it's one thing to kill another human being, and I have to. This is how we survive. Whatever it is, we're fighting Nazis, and you don't have a choice. Okay, fair. But to behead, just that kind of stuff, I just think
Torture. Yeah.
I often ask. This is going to a very unplanned place, but I ask myself what I'm capable of if somebody hurt my kids, or hurt my wife, or hurt my mom. What would I be capable of doing?
I bet you'd be capable of extreme violence.
I think, without question, but I would be capable of it. But I don't like blood. I can't stand blood. I don't like guts. It would make me sick. It would horrify me. So I'm like, how would I? This is the shit that tortures me in the middle of the night when I can't sleep. Like, how far removed am I from this mentality? Like, am I just a few catastrophes away from losing my mind and becoming a lunatic?
Well, that's the appeal of The Walking Dead.
Right.
The Walking Dead,
Yes,
the
right.
zombies become inconsequential. The real problem is people.
Yes, that's so true. And I could do a hell of a lot of horrendous things, but I couldn't, like, some of the torture methods, how do you have the stomach for it?
Well, like, look at what they did during the Inquisition. You can't say that was drugs. These were people that just decided they were going to torture people. And they had, they decided they othered people. This is a really aspect of human nature.
How do you defend against them, do you think?
Well,
Seriously, like if we all have it in us, what is the antidote to that?
you have to have a strong army. You have people that can defend you against people that want to do that to people here. You know, and then they have to have a strong ethical and moral foundation where they would never
Be compromised.
Yeah, they have to be the good guys. They have to think that they're the good guys and have a very strong ethical and moral foundation that doesn't allow them to compromise that.
It's tough though because when people fight dirty, it's such a massive disadvantage.
Right.
That then you think, well, I'm going to lose if I don't make this sacrifice in how I'm behaving or how I'm tackling this.
Well, we like to think that we're the good guys, but the biggest thing that's ever been done to human beings that's horrific is the nuclear bomb. Like indiscriminate killing of civilians, hundreds of thousands, boom, in one shot.
Okay, the argument being that you drop it and then the war ends.
Yeah.
So it's
Sure.
the lesser of evils. You sacrificed
Yeah.
how many hundreds of thousands of people in that moment, but did you save millions down the road? And can you justify the behavior utilizing that logic? Well, I committed this atrocity, but I saved more lives. Like that's the slippery slope that I think about often. Is you were just talking about this the other day when be careful you don't become a monster.
Yeah.
When you're fighting monsters.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's that fire fighting fire conversation. You want to use water. What if it doesn't work?
Yeah, sometimes you have to become a monster.
Sometimes you honestly, Joe, I hate to say it, but sometimes
you
have
do.
to.
Yeah, if you want to defeat evil, you have to become a monster. Because if you don't, you won't beat it. You have to do horrific things to beat horrific people. You have to kill them, right? Like if someone's invading and they're shooting guns at people and they show up at the beach and they pull up their boats and they start gunning people down, you have to do the same to stop them. You can't like bring out daisies and go, hey guys, like I bake you these pot brownies. Just like let's just chill. Let's just be this, man.
Sebastian Younger said this to me once. He's like, listen, if you aren't willing to talk to the worst enemy, you have to fight them. But it's when the talking doesn't work. And you see that all the time.
Yep.
You see, I see it in my own personal life. When all of my best intentions and my calmest demeanor and my most empathetic approach to something fails because you're just not dealing with somebody who is rational or well-intentioned.
Right.
And if you broaden that out...
Well, then imagine a language barrier. We have no idea what they're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then a cultural barrier where their culture believes that if they die, that they're going to go to heaven and that they'll be a martyr. And so they're willing to do that. They're excited to die and to kill you with them because they believe that the real prize is not in this life. It's in the next life. But we're very vulnerable. We're very vulnerable to this kind of thinking. And I don't know why we're designed this way. It's a distortion probably of tribal, survival, primate instincts. Yeah, you see it with, have you ever watched Chimp Nation?
No, I was actually going to say animals don't have it, but then here we are.
Oh, they do.
Really? I mean, I know lions will kill and that they're territorial, but the capacity for torture, I've never seen that in the animal kingdom. That kind of...
You ever see a cat with a mouse?
Okay. Yeah, I guess I have.
Yeah, they torture mice. They hold on to them, and then they let them go, and the mouse like, oh, Jesus is going to let me go. Like, not today, motherfucker. And then they torture them and want to keep playing with them. Yeah, they have zero empathy. Cats are the worst.
Yeah.
They have zero empathy, especially house cats, because they're well fed, right? So they're not doing it for food. They're just doing it because they have instincts to kill. Like, these instincts are they're being distorted, right? Because like the real instinct that they have to kill is so that they can survive. But when they're fully fed, they don't turn those instincts off. Now they just have this kill drive that's never satiated. And cats are the perfect killer. They move so fast, they're so stealthy. They have it from the time they're kittens. You see them crawl up to each other, like very slowly, just jump on each other.
I'm thinking about our cat, actually, as you're talking.
Yeah.
When we lived in Miami, he would use the dog door, and he would bring in iguanas.
Oh, yeah.
This big.
Yeah. They're crazy.
My wife would be like, honey, you're chasing this fucking iguana around the house. It was ridiculous. And yeah, and he wouldn't kill it.
No, they're not trying to kill it. They're having fun.
He Having
Yeah.
fun now that I mean,
You have a
right?
little murderer that you live with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you little bastard. But yes.
That's what cats are.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a part of their essence. I mean, they're the cleanup crew. They're there to make sure the populations don't get out of control.
God, you bring up such a great point.
Have you ever seen the numbers on cats, like domestic cats, what they kill every year?
At the birds, I know they kill like crazy.
Billions. Billions of birds and billions of rodents. Let's look at the numbers.
Jesus,
because
really?
people, we brought it up before, but it's worth repeating because it's kind of crazy. So it sort of illustrates his point. So this is like
billions.
Yes, B with B, like multiple.
I didn't know that means house cats.
Oh, they don't have to be. They kill
Street
hundreds.
cats.
Each cat. Feral cats are ruthless. House cats, feral cats, wild cats, any cat that's outside. Yeah, they instantly kill. Okay, here it is. Domestic cats, leading cause of bird deaths in the United States, estimated to kill 1.3 and 4 billion birds annually. This includes both pet cats and cats that roam outdoors and feral cats. American Bird Conservancy estimates that free-ranging cats kill approximately 2.4 million. It's hard to know what the real numbers are,
right? Yeah,
but
it's
know
high.
it's in the billions.
It's in the billions.
But imagine how many birds there would be if cats didn't do that. Like, who's gonna kill them? Like, they'd be fucking, the sky would be filled with birds. You go outside, just get shit on everywhere.
Like Alfred Hitchcock movie.
It's kind of crazy.
I mean, when you do look back at the plague, and they started killing all the cats because they were associated with witches, and that's when the plague was able to kind of run more rampant.
Right.
Because the cats were keeping that rat population
Yes.
down, and the fleas on the rats caused.
Well, that's the coyote problem in California, right? Like, people are like, oh, I hate coyotes. Right. But do you hate coyotes more than you hate rats? Because coyotes are the reason why rats aren't everywhere. You know, like where I used to live, like there was a lot of coyotes, but I don't see very many rats. And that's the reason why. Like
Yeah.
the wolves, the little wolves, which is what a coyote is, a
Right.
small wolf, they're rat killers and rabbit killers and everything else they've been a hold of.
I mean, it's obvious that they're playing a role
Yeah.
in this control.
Ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly. But because everyone in California just thinks they ate my Pomeranian. I don't
Oh,
see.
they probably did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they probably did. I mean,
Oh,
as a child,
they ate my daughter's puppy. Yeah. But a mountain lion ate one of my dogs when I lived in Colorado. Yeah, it's like these cats are motherfuckers, you know.
Yeah.
And predators, like at least predators are doing it for food.
Well, I was gonna say you don't hold it against. As a child, I lost a dog to a coyote. To this day, I don't I don't hate coyotes. It's like, the dog was in the yard and coyote-proofed the yard enough. Let's fucking coyote-proof the yard
You
now.
can't really coyote-proof your yard either. I had a coyote kill a chicken in my yard. We had a 6-foot tall wrought iron fence.
With the rollers on it? Did you have
we didn't
those?
have the rollers.
Okay.
But the coyote, with the chicken in its mouth, leaped to the top like a ballerina. Like, it was so elegant the way, I was really impressed with its athleticism. And as a person who, like, admires physical feats, I was like, well, that's very impressive. Because with that chicken in its mouth, leaped up to the top of the fence, got its paws on it, went over just so gracefully and so adept. It was really impressive.
Okay, fair. This is like I guess animals do have a propensity for cats in particular, but I did not think of it that way. That makes me feel a little better.
The cat thing is fucked up because they're not even doing it for food. But it's like that thing inside of them has been. It's there. You can't satisfy it with just food. I mean, they literally are the cleanup crew for nature. That's what they are in Africa. When you see them, they're looking for the wounded antelopes. They're looking for anybody who's old. They're looking for anybody who just can't run fast enough. And that's what they do. And that's how they keep the populations down. You know, this is the reason why they've reintroduced wolves into Colorado, and it's the reason why they reintroduced wolves in Montana, and the elk populations decreased significantly because the elk populations were out of control.
Right.
So they brought in wolves, and the wolves like radically dropped the population down. And they even do surplus killing, where they'll kill a bunch of things where they can't eat, but just that they can't help themselves. They have the opportunity to kill, and so they do.
So what is the antidote to this within the human population? Because I see the necessity for survival, but it can make you quite depressed if you let it. It can make you a bit nihilistic.
Yeah.
And fighting for the hope and the good is so much. My mom says that to me all the time, because when I try to show
it's fine.
I want to.
There's nothing wrong with that.
She's like, I want to see the good in people. Try to see Mr. Rogers, look for
Yeah.
the helpers. But you can fall into really becoming nihilistic about humanity when you witness these things and have these conversations. And I try so hard not to roll it in my head, but it's hard not to.
Well, we are
They're not
primitive.
become that way.
We're a primitive, evolving species, and we're still trapped with these primate bodies. We're territorial primates with weapons, and we're still trapped with the same instincts that got us to the dance, the same instincts that caused us to create walled cities, which allowed us to survive, and then agriculture, which allowed us to develop surpluses, and then people wanted those surpluses, nomads, and they came in, the roving barbarians, the Mongolian hordes. This is like all a part of our history, and this is the battle of good versus evil. And the battle of good versus evil, I think this duality has to exist. I think you have to have good to combat evil, and you have to have evil to keep good in check, like to enhance good, to force people to really to rise and to innovate and to figure out how to defeat evil. Without evil and without the idea of these hordes, we never would have developed cities. We never developed cities. We never would have gone through the Industrial Revolution. We wouldn't develop cities if we were just sort of roving, peaceful, nomadic hunter-gatherers. We wouldn't be the same.
It serves its purpose. I've read all my Khalil Gibran. Like, the deeper your pain, like the more ability you have for empathy, and I get all of it, but it's seemingly imbalanced now. And I guess that's what you need.
It's always like that, but that is what causes people to strive to do better.
I hope you're right, Jeff.
I think it is.
You're definitely one of those guys, which is why, bringing it back to the very beginning, I think that you're number one, but I also think, you're one out of quite a few.
Well,
I hope you're right.
You have to have principles that you live your life by, right? And be aware of evil, but do your best to be good.
Yeah, and you see the fight.
Without evil, like you have no desire to be good. Like why be wonderful? Why be kind? And why there's no contrast. There's nothing you're fighting against. Like this is unfortunately what motivates.
What makes you choose though? Okay, so another thing that I've thought about often is like evil never stops going. Have you ever heard that good has to decide when it gets out of bed in the morning? Like you're on the freeway and someone's is broken down on the side of the freeway, and it's like, are you late for something? Are you worried? There are a million things that will influence whether or not I stop that day. But a bad guy will always see an opportunity to go after that person. Evil works tirelessly, and good requires a sacrifice. You sacrifice yourself. Too dark of a conversation. It's like, that's it. No more of this dark shit.
Is it back now? Oh, yep. Well, that's weird. I didn't even touch it. Okay, back. I'm back.
Yeah, this is time
evil. Evil's trying to stop me from saying. The moment I'm saying there's more good than there is evil.
The mic disconnect.
Yeah, I think unfortunately evil can co-opt people, and because good people can become evil when they experience so much evil that they have to become a monster.
Yeah.
Fight against monsters.
I'm seeing it even in the health space. I sometimes Frig, I'm dealing with the FDA stuff right now, and I was talking to him this morning, and he's like, Jenny, he's talking about trying to compound peptides, and there's a war on peptides, and there's a war on stem cells, and of course it's like the cutting edge of medicine, but he's like describing what they're going up against in dealing with this, and it's evil. Like, why would you want to prevent these life-saving treatments?
Well, that's a perfect example.
Yeah.
That's money, and if money is the devil, that's a perfect example.
How much
because
do
the
we
pharmacy.
need them, Joe?
Yeah,
That's
it's
my
not
question.
you though. The problem is corporations. I'm sure you've seen this before. Corporations behave like a psychopath, right? Because corporations don't have humanity, and when you have a corporation, which I don't know how we get away from not having corporations. corporations. So what's the solution there? But corporations have an obligation to their shareholders.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to do fucked up things in order to make more money. And that's when you're in the business of drugs. Like that's if you're in the business of making movies, I mean, what fucked up things can you do to make more movies and make movies that more people are going to see? Really nothing. It's like you just have to make them resonate with people. But if you're selling drugs, boy, you can influence people. You can lie about studies. You can have your scientists perform studies and then throw out all the studies that don't jive with whatever you're trying to sell.
Compounding.
And then you can
compromise.
You compromise all these politicians and get them to repeat your narratives.
That should be illegal, though.
Oh yeah, that should be illegal.
You should be able to get rid of.
But the problem is it's not. So how do you get it out?
You gotta reform campaign finance. Do you remember many moons ago? I believe it was John Edwards who was running on that. Many moons ago. But as a kid, I didn't fully understand what that meant. As an adult, no one's ever brought that. I mean, kind of.
Here's step one. You gotta say they can't advertise. That's
they
number
can't
one.
do it.
Because not only is it not advertising is not really the problem, it's part of the problem. But the real problem is when they advertise, and Callie Means talks about this extensively. Now the media will not criticize them because they're responsible for an enormous percentage of their income.
70+%. But the issue, I had this conversation recently, and the issue is going to be freedom of speech here. It's going to be a First Amendment fight.
But that's not a First Amendment
thing
because you can still do it on social media. You can still like make your own podcast with Pfizer.
That's the angle they're going to take. I am sure of it.
Right, but you can't advertise for cigarettes on television. Why? Because we've decided
kids,
cigarettes.
I think it's kids. I've heard this conversation, and I'm trying to remember who one of the researchers was, but Callie was there, Laura Kyman was there, and they were having this exact conversation, and one of the people on the other side was suggesting that they've already gamed this out, and that's the way that they're going to go.
Right, well, ironically, this is self-sabotage for the media itself because no one takes them seriously anymore because they don't do that. Because they don't criticize the pharmaceutical drug companies. They don't talk about vaccine side effects. They don't talk about pharmaceutical drug side effects. They don't.
They make you look like you're insane when
Yes,
you do.
you're a crazy person.
I was on CNN talking about Ozempic one time, and then they essentially called me anti-science because I suggested that a lot of the drugs, I was like, well, they're like, well, we give people statins and we give people blood pressure medication.
Well, look at the fucking data on statins, by the way.
I was initiating that conversation, and I was called anti-science. And
well, that's not even anti-science. They don't understand the data.
They won't even allow you to express that on the show anyway. Then never again invited.
Of course.
On CNN.
Because they're compromised. It's not really news. It's only the news that they feel compelled to talk about due to their financial interests.
Buy the narrative.
But the problem with that, like, look at the ratings on CNN. They're fucking collapsing. And they're in a spiral. Why? Because no one trusts them anymore. So the public trust has been eroded because of their own desire to make more money.
There's an opportunity where a network wanted me to compete against these GLP-1 drugs. And everyone loves the idea. But the top concern is, well, what if Jillian wins? And then it'll be a catastrophe. So the ad sales department is like, I don't know if we can do this. We can't call it Jillian versus. We can't call it that. What are we going to call it? I don't know how we're going to position this. I said, we don't even need to bash it. Let me just do my job. Let's see what happens. They're even afraid. God forbid I won.
Yeah.
I was able to do it naturally.
Do you think there's an argument for GLP-1 drugs, though, for people who are morbidly obese? Because I kind of do.
Okay, so here's where I've gotten to on all medications, largely. It's a cost-benefit analysis. So if you brought an individual who was morbidly obese and already had atherosclerosis and type 2 diabetes and chronic kidney disease, and you said we've tried everything, they're at death's door, and this is arguably the last step. Well, in that case, the downsides of the medications are far less than not trying it. So in that instance, you could twist my arm for sure. But if you gave me my way, I would prefer to look at what the medications like ibogaine or psilocybin could do for the psychological component, the addictive component.
Yes.
One treatment.
Yeah.
Doesn't go on forever. And then, because diet and exercise do work, what's stopping them from engaging in those habits consistently is all the stuff we talked about in the beginning, the psychological component, the physical addiction. So, no one's ever tried it though. So there's no way to actually know, and you can't, it's almost impossible to do the research on it, which is, again, why the Texas Advocate Initiative is so important.
Yeah.
Because you can begin this kind of research, although it is in veterans and addiction and so on, but would that be the first step? And when I've asked the people in the space, like Matt Shepard, for example, who is at Shepard Pratt, and one of the guys, the foremost experts on psilocybin and treating addiction, he's like, yeah, theoretically, it would work great. Theoretically. So, for me, if we got all the way to this place and I had no choice, that's like saying, Jill, if someone had stage 4 cancer, would you do chemo? I mean, I guess so. But I'd like to, if there was an alternative way forward, or if we could prevent it to begin with, that would be ideal. So if you twist my arm to that point, I think there's something to be said for, again, what Brigham is doing at Ways to Well, which is why being able to compound the GLP-1 drugs allows you to titrate the dose. So when people argue with me on this matter, they'll suggest that a titrated dose, a lesser amount of these drugs can be effective with significantly less side effects. But when they're trying to block that, we can't even explore it.
Yeah. It's all weird because I think the problem also is competition, right? If ibogaine becomes ubiquitous and these clinics become everywhere, the real issue becomes how much does that compete with the pharmaceutical drug market's value? How much does that decrease their ability to profit? And it's probably significant.
I mean, if it impacts antidepressants alone, that's significant. If one treatment could have the impact on obesity that it does on opioid addiction, and GLP-1s are the most profitable drug on the planet.
But here's the thing: if they do allow the use of ibogaine and then also they allow the use of psilocybin, more people start taking it. More people are not going to buy whatever the pharmaceutical drug companies are selling, and they'll just naturally sort of deteriorate. You're always going to have fools. You're always going to have people that just want to, call There's always going to be people like that. And those people are there to give you a lesson without you having to fall prey to the folly that they have fallen prey to. I think that's the same with a lot of addictions, particularly gambling addiction. I'm in Vegas all the time, and I don't gamble. But I play blackjack for fun, but like $20 here.
Right.
I don't get it, but I see it. I see that crazed look in them. I think gambling addiction is one of the weirder ones. I've been around it a good portion of my life, and it's the sweaty fucking faces. This need to gamble is really nuts, and that's another part of the human reward system that's been hijacked.
Rewarding. Yeah,
Yes.
it's the most powerful.
It's crazy.
Study, I've ever seen it with like the rats, where they push the button, no food comes out. Push the button, food comes out.
Mm-hmm.
So the ones that get the intermittent food reward will sit there and push that damn button until they collapse in exhaustion. The ones that push for a little while get nothing, give up. The ones that push until they get food every time, get full and give up.
Machine logic. It's the same thing.
Yep. It's that intermittent food force.
Yeah, we're
exceptionally powerful.
Easy to manipulate. We're weird creatures.
No.
And it's all our survival instincts get hijacked.
But if we gave them an alternative path when they are ready for help,
right?
When the horse is ready to drink, and you had an alternative method that we're seeing work.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. You have that freedom of the use of these alternative methods, and I think naturally those would overcome. They would succeed. I think you'd still probably have gambling addicts. You still probably would have people that want to take all the pharmaceutical drugs, like whatever the doctor wants prescribed to, but it would be less and less. And they don't want that, which is why you're seeing the pushback from the FDA with peptides and all these different things, is because they're concerned that if you give people a bunch of things that are going to make them healthy, they're not going to take as many pharmaceutical drugs.
No, without I mean, which is why there's no model for prevention in healthcare.
Right.
It's not profitable at all. But it's ridiculous. There's a peptide called cerebrolizing that they give to stroke patients in other parts of the developed world that can have a massive impact as well on cognitive function. It can be neuroprotective. literally, I had to find it in Austria, ship it into the country, and Brigham and Dr. Wexford. Now what do I do with this? He's like, Brigham had to walk me through how to use it on freaking FaceTime. He's like, it's not, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It is insane.
It's pretty crazy.
And
By the way, there's a new stroke drug that I actually just sent my friend Rich, because our friend Keith Robinson, I don't have his number, but he suffered from a stroke. And there's some new drug that, I'll send this to you, Jamie. These UCLA scientists have developed, oh, you got it already. They developed first drug rehabilitation to repair brain damage. Drug replicated the recovery of movement control produced by rehab in mice.
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so this is March 18th. New study by UCLA Health has discovered what researchers say is the first drug to fully reproduce the effects of physical stroke rehabilitation in model mice following from human studies. Yeah, so which is wonderful. It's amazing. So this is the benefit of pharmaceutical drugs.
Yes.
Like, there are some pharmaceutical drugs that are wonderful. So the goal is to have medicine that stroke patients can take that produces the effects of rehabilitation. Dr. S. Thomas Carmichael, the study's lead author and professor and chair of UCLA neurology, rehabilitation after stroke is limited in its actual effects because most patients cannot sustain the rehab intensity needed for stroke recovery. Further, stroke recovery is not like most other fields of medicine where drugs are available to treat the disease, such as cardiology, infectious disease, or cancer. Carmichael said rehabilitation is a physical medicine approach that has been around for decades. We need to move rehabilitation into an era of molecular medicine. So this is why, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Totally right. It's always like that, though. Everything is a U-shaped curve.
Yeah, there's drugs that the pharmaceutical drug companies make that help people and heal them and fix them and save their lives. And,
I couldn't agree with you more.
It's great.
It's like, but it is.
But you have to contain them. Just like you have to, keep your kids from eating all the sugar.
Completely.
Yeah.
I just got a whooping cough, and Joe, I literally thought I was going to die. I ended up at week 7. I called my internist and I was like, I think you need to check me in the fucking hospital. This is insane. I think I'm going to die. And they hit me with the horns. And the long story short is, I'm vaccinated for it, but I guess my vaccination or my booster is old. I don't even remember the last time I got it. My wife is vaccinated. My kids are vaccinated for it. My mom is vaccinated for it. Everybody in my circle is vaccinated. No one got it. I strongly recommend getting your DTaP vaccine because whooping cough, it was 100 days of it. So my point being, like, I don't want the COVID I don't want the COVID vaccine, and I don't need it. But in any universe for me personally, if I would have known I was behind on that booster, it's like everything has a cost-benefit analysis. Everything, it's like the dose is what makes the poison. Everything is that U-shaped curve, and approaching it with nuance is really the only intelligent way forward to make best decisions for yourself. But you need the right information to do that.
And we need to have actual access to data. And this is a real problem that we've had in the last few decades because there's been this revolving door between the FDA and pharmaceutical drug companies. So people there, I think it's like 7 out of 8 heads of the FDA went on to work for pharmaceutical drug companies.
Revolving door, 100%.
So you develop these relationships with these pharmaceutical drug companies where they're funding the studies, they're funding all, and then you leave, and then you go to work for them, and you get a nice cushy job. So you kind of
I can be
sideways.
I can be worse. I was when I was at the Senate testimony. Can't remember how many months ago that was, but Callie Weeds had us meeting with different senators and their aides, and it came up to me, and I of course brought that up, and I was like, it's so much worse than that. And I was like, elaborate. What do you mean it's so much worse than that? And he said essentially they developed the drug, have stock in the company, go to work at the FDA, approve the drug, and go back to the drug company. So, yeah. I'm like, oh, there's another step. Okay. Got it.
So great. It should be completely illegal. Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about a conflict of interest. That's the biggest conflict ever. And you're dealing with billions of dollars in profit.
I was working on a book, or have been working on a book, where it looks at each and every law that was put into place with good intentions. And the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And how how each and every one was co-opted by big food, big ag, or big pharma to wreak complete havoc and destruction.
Yeah.
And that's what you see.
That's what you see, and you're gonna keep seeing that if nothing gets changed. And that's what's encouraging about this administration. So the thing that I was most excited about was Bobby Kennedy. When Bobby Kennedy united with Trump, I was like, okay, I'm in. Because like if he can get in there, you can see real change that's gonna affect the way our lives are forever. It's going to change things. It's going to give people a real understanding of what's going on behind the scenes, why you've been lied to, why all these drugs are everywhere, why you're seeing poor health outcomes, why we're the richest nation in the world but also the sickest. You know, why, and across the board with education, we're the richest nation in the world. We have terrible education scores. Like why? Why, since we developed the Department of Education, have our scores plummeted? Like, what is that? And again, road to hell.
Yes,
Attention.
100%. I was speaking with Kelly, and he's like, well, don't pull punches because you want to be diplomatic, but I'm finding myself defending Kennedy, who, by the way, I've met twice. I don't work for this administration. I have no personal affiliation. It's just right and wrong. There is a huge problem that needs to be addressed, and this administration wants to address it. And then you are seeing the resistance. You are seeing the opposition flood the zone with hysteria 24 fucking 7, and it's crazy. It's constantly taking people off piece. Like, oh, I actually did an interview the other day on News Nation where the host was like, well, he promised results on autism by September, and that's unrealistic. And I was like, who gives a fuck if it's unrealistic? Aren't you glad we're looking at it?
Yeah.
It's genetic. Do you really believe that?
Why would anybody say that without doing decades of research themselves?
I cannot. Do you really think?
Do you know California's? It's now some
Yes.
insane number, like 1 in 12 boys.
It's higher in California, obviously, than anywhere else in the country, and boys in particular over girls.
Yeah.
But the reality is that we don't know.
Well, they also think that one of the reasons why it's boys over girls is like in girls, it's like less obvious. It's less diagnosed.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
I've seen that. I'm not sure if that's true either, because that's the argument. Also, it's like, oh, autism has always been here. It just hasn't been diagnosed correctly. Like,
that was debunked though
yeah,
by the
that's
Mind
nonsense.
Institute at UC Davis. It was like, no, that's bullshit. It was 1 in 350 20 years ago.
But people don't want to admit they did that to their kids, and so they will defend it to the death. Just like people who've turned their kids trans don't want to admit that these are chemical castration drugs. They don't want to admit it. They don't want to admit that they possibly have contributed to mental disease, their mental health disease, to anxiety, depression, and suicide. No. Would you rather have a live boy or a dead girl? Like,
Right.
what?
Exactly.
What are you folks saying?
But it's a closed system, and what I mean by that is even if I did the gimme, oh, you're right, autism is genetic. Well, what about the rise in early onset cancer diagnosis, the rise in obesity, the steady increase of infertility year after year after year? We went from adult onset diabetes to type 2 diabetes because children have type 2 diabetes now. Come on, California would approach this. People are not stupid. They're not. You can capture them to a point. But when the evidence is overwhelming, we are sicker than ever. And the resistance is mind-blowing to this guy every day. Oh, well, now, he fired the guy that's tracking gonorrhea. I'm like, you know what? I mean, wear a fucking condom. For God's sake. They're going to be that worried. Hopefully, that guy will get his job back. But at the end of the day, he's also tackling the grass rule and trying to get to the bottom of autism and getting poison out of baby formula and removing soda from snacks. It's just like, where is the perspective for the general public to read through the media bullshit?
Well, the problem is it's gone tribal, right? And when you have an us versus them thing going on, which is what we do here in this country. Like I keep seeing like people online saying in these dark times, like,
yes.
Are these times so dark? Like, what is happening? But, it's dark. Yeah, if you're living in Gaza, it's pretty fucking dark. If you're living in Ukraine, pretty dark. But like here, have things gone dark? Like they're calling it this totalitarian regime. Like,
right.
Okay, what's totalitarian? they're cutting fraud and waste. Like, have you paid attention to the fraud and waste? Have you paid attention to the fact they spent $250 million on transgender animal studies? Like, where's your fucking money going? You're not concerned with this unchecked spending that this government has been able to do for decade upon decade and these millions of NGOs. Do you know there's an NGO in India for every 600 people?
That's not. I have heard CIA flush. I've watched that episode
There's
with my friends. There's a ton of them.
3.3 million NGOs in India. There's an NGO in India for every 600 people. And this is why we're $36 trillion in debt. Like, those numbers are nuts.
Can I be the opposition?
Sure, please do.
Okay. There's children that are starving, Joe. You've taken their food away.
Well, we definitely shouldn't do that.
You know what?
If you can prove that this...
Right.
This is also the problem with charities. This is the dark truth of charities, is that most charities, the money goes to bureaucracy. A huge percentage of it goes to overhead. In fact, most charities, the vast majority of the money never gets to the charity.
Homelessness in California.
Yeah.
24 billion gone. Oh, where is it?
It was...
Yeah, where's the money?
Spent
And the problem's worse.
free needles or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was spent on.
It wasn't even. It's probably fraud and waste.
It's both.
And there's also, my friend Coleon Noir, he brought this up, and I was never aware of it. He said he went to San Francisco, and he saw the rampant, and he's a lawyer, so he went to San Francisco, and he saw all this homelessness. He's like, what is the problem? There's not enough funding? And a guy over there goes, no, you don't understand. It's the opposite. There's a business now.
Yeah.
So these people that are working in the homeless, whatever the organization, they're making $250,000 a year.
$500,000.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen Annie Kasparian talk about this, but she can elaborate on this subject matter to the point that you literally want to forcibly remove Gavin Newsom from office. It is staggering, and some of them $500,000.
Yeah.
And nothing.
They're doing a great job. Just imagine if they weren't there, how much homeless we have. We'd all be homeless.
I know. You've seen him talk
Everyone
about...
would be homeless, so just
relax. Well, I just had this conversation, actually. I was talking to Corolla, and he was telling me that Gavin Newsom had told him back in the day that the face of homelessness was not addiction and mental illness. It was women and children. And there's a loophole. A friend of mine who's a reporter with the New York Times looked into it. Because she's like, why did you push back on that? Because he's right. She goes, no, I looked into it, and it's women and children. And then she ended up getting to the bottom of the loophole, and the way that he was able to put forward that narrative is that homeless is a person without a stable address, and that's predominantly women and children. But unsheltered is what we consider homeless, the people in the streets and the tent camps, and arguably that is largely.
So I don't understand, what's the definition?
Okay, so Newsom was saying to Corolla, like, you're so insensitive, and the face of
the children don't own homes?
He was saying that women, mom that owns 2 jobs, that's who I'm trying to save. Like, we don't need to tackle addiction, and we don't need to tackle mental illness, because this is about the underprivileged individual, the female single mom with 2 kids, who, this is the face of homelessness. And Corolla was like, you're a sociopath. It's addicts and people with mental illness. And I ended up then in a debate with this journalist who's lovely, named Molly, and she's like, well, the statistics say that homelessness is in fact women and children. But when I challenged her and sent her San Francisco, wherever we go back and forth, and she ended up coming back to me after doing the homework, and there is a distinction between homeless and unsheltered. So homeless are people with unstable addresses, and that is women and children.
Why?
In temporary, I couldn't quite extrapolate what.
So is it like divorce?
I guess it's like in temporary housing, or in an apartment somewhere, but unsheltered, the people on the street that you and I would go homeless. Like in the tent camp outside on the sidewalk.
So they
is unsheltered. That's what I'm doing.
Oh, God.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Gross.
Yes! I'm sorry. Cannot stand the guy.
Well, if you see these
I can't
tent
stand him.
communities, you see clearly that you're dealing with drug addiction and mental illness.
But don't believe when you see see it with your own eyes.
Right.
That's the game across the board.
Right.
Don't believe your common sense. Common sense would dictate all the things that he talks about. Autism is increasing. You shouldn't give sex change. Shouldn't sterilize 12-year-olds. But don't believe any of that. Don't believe that people who are homeless need help psychologically, need some way to treat the addiction. Obviously, there are more intelligent people like Schellenberger that had a plan for this, despite the fact that he didn't get into the governor's office, which is a shame because they would have done far better than what California's dealing with now. But it's the constant game and manipulation of the facts all the time. And this is where, if I could do one thing in my job, it's teaching people how to defer back to their common sense. It's crazy.
Yeah. So common sense is not that common, right?
No.
It's also people are tired because they have a poor diet and they're not eating well, and so they don't have the time to be thinking about this stuff. And they don't have the mental energy to like research these things, and they're overwhelmed with bills and debt, and maybe like relationship problems, and there's so many problems that people have already. To get them to look at external issues that maybe don't affect them personally on a day-to-day basis, it's very difficult to get people to focus on that. So then they vote with what they think is like their virtue. Blue no matter who. Vote Democrat no matter what. Like, okay, that's not helping you. And then when you abandon it and leave, you're called a traitor. You're a traitor to the party. Or, you must get that a lot.
Oh my God! Well, I went through all of it, but then when you finally decide it doesn't matter anymore, you become immune. So it's interesting. Back in the day when my friend used to refer to me in this capacity, and she'd say, you're like the fat person's Jesus. This is the early 2000s. Jillian Michaels doesn't judge, but she's open arms and she's trying to help people. And then the very same person, with the very same belief system, the very same strategies in dealing with the problem became the ultimate enemy, the ultimate fat shamer, the ultimate science denier. And it just goes to show you how the narrative shifts. It's tough to call me a transphobe because I fall under that acronym umbrella, despite the fact that gay is different, very different than trans. I've never really understood the acronym either. It completely.
Yeah.
But you can't say, go ahead. I'm a homophobe. Come at me, bro.
You're literally gay.
I'm married to a woman.
Yeah.
It's tough to you can try. I haven't been hit with the racist card, although I'm waiting for it. I don't know, maybe because my kid is Haitian, and she gives me a pass. I have no idea. But you get certain protections simply because you're a card-carrying member of the club. But I got hit with everything outside of that. Transphobe, not ish, fat shamer, and anti-science, and ableist, and privileged, and all that stuff.
Yeah, but all that stuff is losing its meaning. The problem is you keep calling people we call everyone a racist. Like, it doesn't mean anymore. You're crying wolf so many times that people don't listen anymore. Like, a real racist is horrific. You run into a real racist, like, oh my God, that's horrific. But if you just call everyone a racist, if you go math is racist, like, okay, math's racist? I've said peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are racist. I've seen that. Okay.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
The exercise is racist.
I did see that. Alt-right. Yes.
Wonderful.
Alt-right, MSNBC.
Wonderful.
Alt-right, I like that. I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
I will tell you, though, I don't think that it is losing as much power as I had hoped. And I reference Elon Musk, and here's why. It's seemingly working. I know a lot of people that think he's an anti-Semite. You sure about that?
Well, they think he's a Nazi.
Right.
More than just an anti-Semite,
Okay,
like an actual Nazi.
These are real people.
Yeah, and here's the irony. He's on the spectrum. So this thing,
Where
he didn't even realize what he's doing when
the
he's
heart gesture.
My heart goes out to you.
But Joe, what about the video, the montage of all the liberals, including AOC, engaging in the same sig hail?
Tim Walsh.
Yes.
It's like a thing that people have to stop doing.
But that's
you got to do it like this. You got to have two hands, touch your heart, and then.
I'm not doing it.
When I was getting in trouble with CNN during the vaccine days, the COVID UFC weigh-ins. Because when I go to the UFC weigh-ins, I say, "Welcome to the weigh-ins, everybody." So they have this photo of me from the side. I was like, "Oh, that's the one they use all the time."
No! Wait, people buy that shit and they are still buying it, and that scares me. I'm in an argument on Piers Morgan. Raise my voice a little bit. I was like, well, I don't know. I don't think he's an anti-Semite. Number one, he's friends with the Jews. Number two, he hires Jews. And number three, he hasn't killed any Jews. And they were like,
has a necklace around his neck that he was given to one of the mothers of the hostages that says, "Bring them home."
I remember him going after October 7th and talking about the videos that he'd seen. But the guy was like, "Oh, that's your benchmark? He doesn't kill Jews?" And I was like, "No, that's yours. You're the one comparing him to Hitler, who killed 6 million Jews. So if you're going to draw that comparison, 0, 6 million. So shut the fuck up." Like,
it's all dumb. But it's all a trick, because what they're really doing is going after him because he's trying to go after U.S. aid. And so
I
that's
see
their
that.
slush fund.
But can I tell you how many reasonable people, and I cannot say.
I have friends that I have to argue about it with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's when I tell you that I don't know that it's actually losing its power.
It is. It's just not losing its power with really fucking dumb people. And you're going to have a certain percentage of really fucking dumb people. And they're either going to have to catch up, or we're going to have to overwhelm them with a lot of logic. And that takes time. And it takes a lot of these kind of conversations. And they get out there and they get clipped. And maybe you and I said something here that will be taken out of context and used against you, which is always really fun. That's my favorite. You just take like a snippet of it. See, told you, she's a this, she's a that. And so it's this reductionist thing where they try to define you by a string of words. Forget about your whole life.
They did that to Candace Owens.
Yes.
Because, oh, she's disgusting anti-Semite. So I listened to her. I listened to her answer all that stuff on her show. And then I listened to her debate it with Rabbi Shmuley, and I thought, okay, let's see what a bitch she is. And I listened to everything she said, and I checked it all and watched it in context. And then I actually sat with her, and I was like, all right, I'm going to open the door.
I like Candace a lot, but Candace says a lot of wild shit.
She does.
Not accurate. Like,
but
she thinks dinosaurs are fake.
I hear you. I get it. But I get it.
That is like self-inflicted. That's a self-inflicted wound.
But do you think that are you a Holocaust denier? No, I'm not a Holocaust denier. And still to this day, she's a Holocaust denier.
Well, that's my friend Daryl Cooper, who was on my podcast, because he said hyperbolically that Winston Churchill was one of the main villains of World War II because he started blockades and forced Hitler into action and starved the German people. It's like what he said was really unfortunate the way he said it, but he was trying to say that Winston Churchill did some things that if he hadn't done them, maybe World War II wouldn't have gone the way it went. But the problem is when you say that and it gets taken out of context, people say, oh, he's a Holocaust denier and a Nazi sympathizer. Right. But then you listen to his podcast, he's got this, I think it's 30 hours called Fear and Loathing in New Jerusalem. And it's the most gut-wrenching tale, the persecution of Jews in Eastern Europe. Just the beginning of it. I tell everybody, just listen to the first 40 minutes of it. It's so heartbreaking. This is not the words of a homophobe, or excuse me, of an anti-Semite that would say those things.
I haven't.
The reductionist things that people love to do.
But even still, here would be my argument to that. If you're inclined to believe that, let's say that was his argument, and that Hitler wasn't bad, and it was Churchill, then you're an asshole and an idiot.
Yeah.
Then there's no hope for you. This gatekeeping of
But
information.
he's neither an asshole or an idiot, and he's being called an asshole and an idiot by people who don't consume his work.
Of course, I'm saying
really
worst case scenario, because I see this a lot with the gatekeeping of information, and God forbid you don't fact check everybody on everything, which has been something that I've gotten a bit of, and like, well, you nodded your head and you said I see your point. I'm like, well, sometimes I see their point, and sometimes I don't know, and I can't fact check everything, and I'll talk to somebody else who has a different opinion, but people can think for themselves as well.
Yeah. Well, there's just a lot of bad faith actors out there, and there's a lot of people that do that, this taking people out of context and trying to use this reductionist perspective and label people with these pejoratives that are inescapable. Like it's in the racist, homophobe, anti-Semite, all those those are inescapable. And once you get hit with those, that's your fucking sticker on your forehead for the rest of your life. And that's what they're trying to do to you, because they're trying to silence you, and because they want to win. And this is a real problem with human beings when it comes to ideas, is that, like, if I believe something and you believe something differently, I don't want to listen to you. I want to beat you, right? I want to overwhelm you with talk. I want to Piers Morgan you into submission. I want to yell at you, not Piers the human, but the show.
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
You want to yell at them, and you want to win. You want to dunk on them. And this is why I don't engage with people on social media. I just think it's the worst way to communicate. And when I see people do it,
people who are in the things they're uncomfortable with, in a way where we find common ground. I may not change their mind, but at least you're, in some cases you hopefully can. And he was 412 pounds, and the guys were doing what they obviously do. The guys were doing what they obviously do. There was a part of my heart that was screaming.
The only way out is to educate people, or enlighten people, or pick off the wagon and pick each other up and, like, reinforce positive. Then you get out the other end, you're like, wow, I wouldn't have done that by myself. I would have quit at like 40 minutes. Up along the way, but find a group. This is why Alcoholics Anonymous is so fucking important. Up along the way, but find a group. This is why Alcoholics Anonymous is so fucking important. You get around these people and you all agree. You get around these people and you all agree. You're all like, and you have sponsors. You're all like, and you have sponsors. And you help each other. Like, this is the whole idea of community. We are not solitary individuals. We're just not. We are a organism experiencing itself in individual ways.
I agree with him. I do. I want.
Don't send me that shit. Yeah, don't send me that shit. Yeah, I don't care. Like, you know.
I know my wife.
I don't care. Like, you know.
I know my wife used to do that for a little while because she would worry. And want me to kind of like temper my behavior.
Right.
Want me to kind of like temper my behavior.
Right.
My business partner would do the same thing. My business partner would do the same thing.
Yeah.
You should stay in the.
I want you to become a bigger winner.
They really do.
Yeah.
I've learned how, especially in the.
Yeah.
I've learned how, especially in the health space when I would be active in a conversation about fitness or nutrition, what have you. You love yourself in that conversation. And I was like, listen, like, the things you're going after me on are not from me. It's from this PhD, that PhD, this PhD, and the American Medical Association. And had him on my podcast, and by the time we were done, he won me over. I was like, I believe you. I think you're right. I'm changing my position on this. You know, but sometimes you're right. It's because someone is getting attention or there's envy there. And I would simply say you can intuit when a criticism might be legitimate. And when you're seeing it over and over and over again, and it's a similar thing, there's something to look at there.
So the problem with
this is the. I knew you've got to reconsider the first.
yeah.
I've seen all those clips. I wanted
like
to.
He's got MS-13 tattooed on his knuckles.
Yeah, I mean, come on. And there was a deportation order.
Yeah.
Just say it, like, so you
see
can't.
The photographs that his wife puts out where she covers his knuckles in every picture?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hilarious.
I mean.
So I was saying, oh my God, they deported a Maryland man and a father, because that's what I was reading in the news.
Okay.
And then you get into it and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, hold on. And then they released the dash cam footage, the police footage of when they arrested him. Not dash cam, whatever the cops are wearing.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I thought the exact same thing.
It's crazy, but it's just like you can't just go on narratives, because these narratives are just designed to make the Trump administration look like monsters.
I was giving an interview to this woman from the New York Times, and she's like, "Don't you see this?" And I was like, "I do see it, and I don't understand it, and I wish it would be different." But then you get into the lesser evils. I wrote her back, and I was like, "I don't agree with my previous position based on the current information available to me now."
It seems like he's a gang member. But then there was that gay hairdresser that, like, seems like he just got roped up.
I know, and what I have learned so far, because I've really been trying to get to the bottom of that one, because I don't understand why the left isn't leaning on that one.
Right.
The other guy, like, beats his wife, suspected trafficker, like, want to be outraged. Like, this guy is a gay hairdresser. I guess he committed. I was listening to Tim Pool talk about this, immigration fraud. So, listen, that
okay, but
guy,
that doesn't belong in an El Salvador prison.
I agree understanding it correctly, is that if somebody can be deported, but they are withheld because of asylum, correct me if I'm wrong here, is they worry going back to their home country is dangerous or deadly, like
Right.
Kilmer Abrego Garcia.
Right.
Because he's not a gang member, but he's afraid of being killed by other gangs that aren't MS-13. You felt that one, right?
Lord.
So it's like, I can't go home because the other gangs will kill me, but I'm not a gang member. Nevertheless, there's a deportation order on him, so I believe that they can just send him to a third country, and that's not illegal. That's something I heard.
Okay,
So,
but
yeah,
just
it shouldn't go to it. You're right. Should not go
immigration
to a
fraud when you're a
No,
gay
you're right.
hairdresser. You don't throw in a fucking
You
concentration
could
camp.
not be more right about that. But tell me then, why is the left not hanging their fucking? Why is he not the poster child? That guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's his knuckles.
Yeah.
I know. Most people don't agree that that's what that means. Oh, dude, I've talked to a guy who's a gang expert.
Two separate courts agreed.
I talked to a guy who's a gang expert who explained it to me. He's like, yeah, this is how it works.
There's also an informant who confirmed.
Well, there's different versions of MS-13, but that's what it means. Like marijuana, smiley face, Jesus, and then the skull. That, I don't. I'm just saying when I've looked online.
How is this still a poster child?
Okay, you can look online, but I mean, I talked to a gang expert that told me that was explaining to me. And there's a bunch of different versions of
There's
gang
two
tattoos.
courts that determined he was an MS-13 gang member. The cops had an informant that was an extremely reliable source that said he is MS-13. The guy, the wife, was like, he beats me, and then withdrew, I guess, but had filed a report. And
Set a protection order.
yes, the cops pulled the guy over with 8 guys in the car, going like from Texas to Maryland, I think, or from Maryland to Texas. No luggage, no tools, and suspected him of trafficking. And again, I will simply say, if you didn't apply for asylum,
why are they hanging their hat on this one and not the gay hairdresser?
I'm asking you that.
What
Wouldn't that
is
be
the latest
your sacrificial lamb?
Because I heard Glenn Greenwald talk about the gay hairdresser, and that one seems the most compelling.
I agree completely.
But there's no logic in this world anymore.
That's
It's all kooky. Like, whatever gets traction. You know? Maybe it's because he's got kids. Oh, he's a father, Maryland father. You know, like, that's what it is. Like, I keep saying, wrongly deported Maryland father.
A deportation order, 100%, and then said, I am worried that the other gangs will kill me, and so that's when they attacked them.
They would have them get permanent disability, and the way they get permanent disability. Yeah.
Such a genius. He's a, thanks to you, I know of him personally. I'm sorry. Like, the kid, I could get into that one. Was innocent, or not innocent, but the lesser evil with regard to Churchill versus Hitler. Kids in KKK that are going to tell you the same thing. If you can't determine that that person's fucked up, you're an idiot.
That's the engineers. They're like, they're fucking dialed in. You know?
This is true. Okay. Oh, god damn.
Like the true origins of COVID-19, like COVID signed it.
Oh
like,
my
what is that?
God.
Why is it a signature?
You know what? Callie posted this, and he's like, can any scientist tell me what on this page isn't true? And can any scientist tell me what on this page isn't true? And I kind of thought this was a joke. That each and every one of those is exactly laid out on your show in March of 2020.
Yeah.
And I remember.
And he was labeled a grandma killer.
I pulled the freaking car over, and he was slow motion outside of Pacific Highway.
Yeah.
And that was my Neo moment in the Matrix. That was it. I was forever going.
Well,
the red pill.
I'm glad you took it.
It was over then.
I'm glad you're on the right side.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
And thanks for being here. I really enjoyed talking to you too. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me.
Keep fighting the good fight.
I will.
It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me.
Keep fighting the good fight.
I will.
All right.
You
Thank you. Some things, hundreds of people involved in helping me not die again. You know, and then he spent the mountain that I live on at the top of Lake Tahoe. That's
about 8,000 feet elevation, and we got just tons and tons of snow. But it happens often, maybe not that intense of a storm, but so much so where we were cut off from anywhere else. We're snowed in, fine. I'm prepared for that stuff. 3 days without power, prepared for it. It's fine. We can have fun. It's actually relief. All the cell phones go off, all the iPads go away, computers, and everybody's just playing card games and headlamps on. And I mean, it's a riot. A good time. You know, so food supply was still good, but it's New Year's Day. We're getting a break in the weather, so I decided to clear the roads and see, come out for air essentially. And the thumb go forward, reverse, and you're neutral, and that's it.
Your skull.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like it's when yeah, it's everything. It's 38 broken bones and eyeballs out.
Whoa.
And it's
shout out to medical.
I know, right? And yeah, I mean, all the doctors were like, dude, I don't know how your eyes still operating, you're still working, but I think because I was on ice, because I did see it, I'm like, well, maybe I want to put this eye on ice and just kind of rolled into it. I saw my eye with my other eye, right? And I'm like, I'm going to keep that thing, because I'm on like an icy asphalt driveway that's off of my driveway, right at the top of the road. So it wasn't really great for impact to get ran over. I wish I was on a snowpack. It would have been maybe a little bit easier. It would push me into snow, right? But it wasn't. So I just kind of rolled onto it, just like maybe I could kind of put the eye on ice until I could figure out how to breathe. I just, I had to sort of laugh at it. It's weird to sort of think about that,
Wow. So 38 bones?
Yeah. Yeah, it was like a lot of ribs and all my spiral fracture, my legs, all my joints were broken, all my ankles, my knees, none of my spine. But this guy comes in, no, it's all right. We're gonna hammer this thing in. We're doing, it just took it. I'm a pretty visual guy, and so I don't think anything hurts me so much in a physical way, but the visual is a pretty haunting image. And the sound, dude, it vibrates your skull as he's taking it out. It was like, this is what horror films are made, right? It's like Saw or something.
Is that the only thing that they had to take out? Is the screws that are in your head, or the
Yeah.
out of your body?
No, they have to leave those in for the most part because you want to risk infection and open you up for something. But yeah, so all the rest of the stuff stays in until those screws come loose. At some point, they will.
They start backing out, right?
Yeah. You think you'd put in a locking screw, right?
I've had friends that have had broken arms and it starts poking out of the bone.
Yeah.
Just have to get another operation to get it removed.
Yeah.
So, how many different plates do you have?
I think I got. There's only a couple in my face, and they went in like underneath my cheek. The plate for my orbital socket, and then for the cheekbone, they put I think a plate or two over there. I'm 150%. My body will always be. Look, my body's aging, so I have to fight against age. Well, recovery is age reversing. It's the same stuff that people are doing just to reverse age. I just do it just because it's my recovery, and I have to for the rest of my life, just to prevent inflammation and discomfort and swelling, things like that.
So, when you have so many broken bones and so many broken joints, what is the recovery like? Like, how did they even get you moving again?
Day by day.
Day by day.
Yeah, it's just as soon as I got home from the hospital, there's PT there and working to just move, keep things moving. You have to, otherwise you lose it. You'll lock up or you lose it.
Seeing you walk around today in the studio, I would have no idea.
Yeah.
You look totally normal.
Yeah. It's great. It takes a lot of work, and it's still working. But I was just having to stretch in the studio. I have to carry those things around for a while. Once I got rid of those, I was kind of sitting up a bit more, and I felt good once I was kind of sitting up. But there's still, as you can imagine, so much trauma, so many places. But I think the longest it was really getting up to stand up, to walk, to get all your joints to work properly again, to relearn to walk, relearn to move, because you kind of have to. A lot of atrophy, as you can imagine, that happens. But I was standing up and moving around. I got into a chair probably, by February after like 3 weeks.
Wow.
And the more I can move, the faster you heal. deal. You get more blood flow. You get your body to work better. Help with my attitude, will to get out and sit up. All the things. Each of these things are like milestones, and I was just like, yeah, and move forward to the next thing. Set a goal for myself, even if it was just like to sit up and like turn, or I didn't have to set such big to reach too far to keep my confidence high. So because I keep reaching these goals, I just kept going and going and going, and I find myself, okay, it's 24 hours a day. So what do I have to do today? Well, I don't even have to ask. I just gotta get better, and it just kept going. And with whatever thing, and there's so many things to attack to get better. It's like I never got a wheelchair, and I wrap around like this disc, and I've even this like a leg press. All these like interesting ways to try to strengthen my. I'd say unplug the machine. I'm done. I'm out of here. It's way better. I'd say unplug the machine. I'm done. I'm out of here. It's way better for you dead. You know what I mean? I'm not going to come back and it's better for you dead. You know what I mean? I'm not going to come back and just waddle my way through life. It's not going to happen.
What's crazy is if you didn't approach it like that, you probably wouldn't be able to walk.
Correct.
Yeah, because there have been a lot of people that have been gravely injured that never come back.
Yeah. You have to push it, right? Anything that's in your life for excellence, you have to obsess at it and risk everything for it. You have to, or it's not going to happen. No one's going to do it for you. But what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
Again, like I said, what's the alternative? Yeah, this sucks, but like, so does a cold plunge, and so does this, and so does that, and so does that.
Right.
You got to really test. We got to test our bodies, our limits, to really have real growth, especially in recovery. You have to. What else are you gonna do, man? You gonna take pills?
Right.
That was one of the hard things, worse than the accident as well, is getting off Oxycontin. And I got out pretty quickly. Like, that's gnarly stuff, man. I'm glad it was there for the pain for me, but like I wanted to get off it as soon as possible, so because it's highly addictive. And coming off that stuff is gnarly.
It's so hard, and you have a real strong will, and some people don't.
I know.
They put all people on that stuff.
It's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
It is really. Ironically, I was supposed to be doing a movie about the soccer family.
Wow.
Yeah. But it was to happen like literally that April or just that spring. Obviously that got canceled because I had to take Oxycontin to kind of get by. But then I had to get off that stuff real quick. It was really interesting too how people treated that drug. Everyone like was monitoring, counting the pills. It was a half a thing, and this and that. Everyone was on it. Like, dude, what? You treat me like some sort of drug addict. Don't give me this stuff. I don't want it. Jesus Christ, it's terrible.
Wow.
But it's pretty powerful stuff. And I don't ever blame sort of the drug. I just think sort of how maybe it's free to use and it's even supported in school systems, and that family kind of got away with a lot of stuff to promote that
To
stuff.
put it mild.
Yeah. It's a whole other.
You've seen Peter Berg's thing on Netflix, Painkiller. Have you seen that? It's a docudrama, documentary.
Oh yeah. No, the tooth pain or whatever, even what the dentist gave me. I think I took the dentist stuff, whatever that was. And cold turkey on Oxycontin and Ketamine.
Ooh, cold turkey.
Yeah, I didn't know.
You didn't know how hard it would be? Oh no.
I was just so adamant. I don't really listen to the doctors. I don't listen to the doctors, man. So I started crying for about 3.5 days straight. Even during my PT, I'm just like, not that I'm sad, but like full crocodile tears, just tears. Wow. 24 hours a day, like just going. I couldn't stop crying, and I was shivering.
So this was just withdrawal.
I wasn't thinking that anything other than like, why am I crying? I didn't know it was withdrawal. Even because my mind's not there. My mind's in recovery and getting off this stuff, and focusing on holding my body up. It takes just a lot of mental acuity to just exist, right? Just so I could like, okay, maybe I'll do that if it happens. And I did once or twice or 3 times, maybe after that.
I had surgery on my knee. I just like, I don't want nothing. I'm just gonna just deal with it. And It was okay.
Yeah, maybe anti-inflammatory or something. That is.
Yeah,
Really
I didn't even take that stuff because I don't think that's good for you either.
Yeah.
It wasn't for me.
Yeah, I agree.
So, how long did it take for the withdrawal to subside?
By the time I got to the so often, you have no energy. So then I started really working with you have no energy. So then I started really working with all my blood panels, big, giant, wide, 16 vial blood panels. All my blood panels, big, giant, wide, 16 vial blood panels. And what I can do to kind of continue to do it, to make it a part of my life.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and then I go into like a red light bed, a high-powered red light red bed, then it moves. Now that's a great confidence builder.
Yeah.
So I kept trying to do those things, and then of course I have to go back into all the recovery stuff, and that I always do. But just happy I can do it.
What does the cold water feel like with like? I mean, you have a rod through your tibia.
Yeah, the cold water that's not the issue. It's when it's cold weather.
Yeah.
Like anybody, if you're stiffer, your blood slows and all that stuff. So it doesn't help us. I need circulation in my joints. Tendon, your blood slows and all that stuff. So it doesn't help us. I need circulation in my joints. Tendons don't get a lot of blood flow. I really got to work at getting blood flow in back to work as I got so ready. Maybe I'm down to like 4 hours a day of recovery, but
It's easy from stuff just by the vibration.
Yeah. Start lifting, and so much energy. Maybe it's so fun also to spread that. Or maybe not. Maybe it's so fun also to spread that. Or maybe not. Maybe it is.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can. Yeah. Well, maybe you can.
I don't know. Do I want to tax my body? I don't know. Do I want to tax my body?
Is it taxing your body or is it strengthening your body?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. How things work or seem to work. I just don't do things I don't give value to. Look, I think people need to stop it. It is an actual requirement of life. This is the fiber, the DNA of love. Real love, right? I mean, it's part of the human experience, right? It's the Joe Rogan experience. I'm not suffering. I'm having a great time with you. But I don't think people welcome that or allow that to happen in their lives and let it be okay. That the suffering that we suffer, that the hard times are the building blocks to who we are.
It builds resilience.
Yeah.
It builds character.
Yeah.
It builds all those things.
Yeah.
I remember one time, and this is minor suffering in comparison, but it's a hunting trip on Prince of Wales Island, which rains like 350 days a year. And so we were up like yourself.
Yeah, very true. It's not. It seems sort of anti-human.
It's like a great quote that I remember. The worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you, regardless of how small that is. So if they broke up with me when I was 18, I was like,
they skipped the gym today, or they may not be PC today. They skipped the gym today, or they may not be PC today. To be in hang, so it's everyone.
yeah,
So
whatever horrible fucking seed oil, whatever fucking industrial lubricant, all of it. All of it. All those for sure.
Yeah.
All those for sure.
Yeah. But I don't do. I really am good at. Yeah. But I don't do. I really am good at moderating the love and joy of my life. So who cares about what happens when I'm not? Right.
Yeah. No, it's really kind of an amazing story, and it's just amazing how these stories can be so inspirational for other people too, which is why I'm really glad you wrote your book, because these stories, they're like autobiographies, especially of people that you admire, that you've seen in movies before. It's like those struggles, they're so real, and when someone's going through something themselves and they can turn to your book, it can give them a lot. It's fuel for people. It really is.
Yeah. For me as well. I mean, I resisted writing it. I still don't know how or why it can and will inspire people. I can only make assumptions, and I think it's so particular to the actual reader and the person. So I can never sort of pontificate on how or why it's important or not. But it is like there's an achievement for me to get through it word by word that I didn't want to do, to relive it, and then it's in my body. And I talk about it all the time. It is part of my narrative. It's part of my life. It's just recovery is just it's just my life, and I love it. I enjoy it. I feel better. I look better, and all that stuff. But it's like the book now is a tangible sort of. This is a great dialogue to have as long as we want, but it's just a dialogue that exists. But now this is a tangible object with words. The words don't change; they stay there like a tablet. And something kind of interesting about that is like a milestone or a tangible thing that now it exists in the world.
Right.
And psychologically, it says a lot to me. So like even when I do die, that's still there. So maybe it can help somebody, even when I can't be there to talk with them or whatever it might be, it'll even exist, right? Something.
It'll exist long after.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because I do movies and things like that or music. Those are like the same thing as a conversation. They just sort of exist in the moment. Like, you know, it's great going to a concert, but then it's over,
Right.
and then that's it. Well, what happened? Well, you speak, like I'm doing now. It's free to do what you want, but to write down the words. Oh wait, there's accountability to the words because they're written, and you didn't have work. You have one. You're not going to soccer practice. Grab it coming with me to class. I'm like, what class? And it was the Moz class, the YMCA, and my stepdad was the YMCA. And my stepdad was out driving a truck or something, and so my mom, she needed me not to be alone, and she needed, you know, whatever. So she brought me, the oldest, and I laid there with the pillow between her legs to teach her how to breathe and short breaths, and then they put me on a screen. Then they showed this white birth at home in a bathtub, pouring out water and this whole thing. Like, what's going on? I'm 12 years old. I'm mortified. Like, what happened? Was that a whale breaching? What was going on? You know, and so that came up in just sort of me and my partner talking about it. And he's like, "Dude, you don't realize?" I'm like, "Yeah." Well, that's why the book's called My Next Breath. You know, it's all about breathing. Breathing is such a central part of my recovery, my central part of my, you know, not dying, and to get through each and every moment. The perspective of the breath, and it's not a conscious thought. It is right. It just reflects it in our body, and when we make it a conscious, when we invest into our breath, what you can do with your mind, with your breath, and it opens up. And the more you breathe, the more you get oxygen in your body. It's just feeding all of us.
Yeah.
It only feeds you. Like, oh, you're tired. No, you're not tired. It's your body that you know that you need to breathe, get more oxygen in yourself, right? So you're not tired. You just need more O2. That's all.
Yeah.
Your body's making it happen.
Isn't it fascinating that everybody breathes? So everybody thinks, oh, breathing, what's the big deal? But have you ever read James Nestor's Breath? Or it's actually Breathe, I guess. But it's an amazing book on breathing techniques and the history of breathing techniques and all the different things that people have achieved with breathing techniques, including holotropic breathing, which achieves psychedelic states of consciousness, and all these different feats of incredible physical endurance that people have achieved with breath work. It's a pretty amazing book. He was a guest of mine on the podcast a few years back, but I read his book and started really getting into it and really trying to practice different breathing exercises and great, you know, there's a bunch of breathing exercises used for anxiety, for overcoming very stressful situations. But when you say that to most people, oh, breathing, they're like, oh, you're one of those guys. You're not going to concentrate on your breathing. What else are you concentrating on? Blinking. You know, it's like, because it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you can minimalize it.
Yeah.
You have reductionist perspective where you don't think it's anything big, and especially if you've never practiced it.
Yeah.
You know, especially with like yogic breathing, you can achieve some bizarre states of relaxation and consciousness through breathing.
Yeah. Big time.
Yeah.
And I always try whenever I explain this to somebody. I say like when I use it. I don't do it like I'm a teacher. I mean, maybe now I do.
Mission process that actors go through is that, you know,